check, check, check. Evening. Welcome to the August 31st, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the town of Raymond. Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. The meeting does have a quorum. I'm now going to do a roll call, starting to my left.
Patricia Beaton.
David Murch.
Tom Hennesley.
Greg Dean.
This is a public proceeding. Unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to hear. The board works from a published agenda, and we will be considering tonight's items in the following order. Call to order. Annual election of chair and vice chair. Old business. New business, including acknowledgement of minutes, approval of minutes, an interview, discussion of new remote meeting laws, code enforcement officer communications, and adjournment. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asked that those attending the meeting with regards to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Generally speaking, appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis for your opposition. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand at the microphone, to sign the speaker sheet, state their name, address, and affiliation with the application, either for or opposed or neutral. All persons speaking shall address all remarks or questions to the chair. The meeting is not over until the board has formally adjourned. Any discussion not included on the meeting's agenda or accepted by the board is to be held until after adjournment or conducted outside of the meeting room. So, first rule of business tonight, annual election of chair or vice chair. Our bylaws state that we have to elect a new chair. That doesn't actually say anything about a vice chair, but we do that as well at the start of each fiscal year. Fiscal year starts in July. This is our first meeting after July, so we are going to do that. So to move forward with this, I will always defer to seniority. So Patricia, before we go any further with this, do you have any desire for a role of chair or vice chair?
I do not.
Okay.
I would encourage you to continue.
Well, this is open.
Chair?
This is open for discussion. So.
So does
Yeah, I think seniority, and if you clearly have the seniority, if you don't want to do it, then we'll go to the current, next senior person seems to be makes the most sense with me. So.
all in favor?
Well, okay, so. All right,
Did you need a second?
I need a motion.
Well,
for
yeah.
something what is going on?
No, okay.
I'll motion that David continues as chair or gets elected as chair.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now moving forward with an election of a vice chair. Again, Patricia states she does not want to take a position. I would take any discussion on where we go from there.
Tom's up.
I would agree.
It's most senior next most senior person.
I hate to decline, but I have travel things and other commitments, so I need to bow out.
So Greg.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no one else, I'm happy to help.
Okay, so
Feels good.
do we have a motion for Greg Dean to be vice chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals?
I make that motion.
I will second it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do I vote? Don't know.
All right, so we've got our chair and vice chair. So, as first step in this, I'm going to rearrange the agenda a little bit tonight. We have Sue here with us to help us with regards to an item of new business for discussion regarding new remote meeting law. She's been working today, all day, so to preserve her time. Sue, if you don't mind giving us some feedback as to what we're looking at here with regards to this new remote meeting law.
I'm Sue Clark, Town Clerk of Raymond, or Sue Clark, rather, Town Clerk of Raymond. Yeah, it's been a long
It's been
day.
a long day.
Sue Clark, that's good. The state put in a bill was presented to the legislature saying that folks in towns could continue to use Zoom. The Clerks Association, several other organizations, MMA, were all completely in favor of this. When it hit the floor of the legislature, they amended it so that they didn't want committees in towns to just use Zoom. They thought we should go back to in-person and use Zoom in certain instances. And they've outlined those instances, and this has been passed by the legislature and signed by the governor and is in law now. And an emergency issue, if you needed to come together as an emergency and needed to meet by Friday because such and such was going to blow up or whatever, then you can use that, you can have that meeting by Zoom if you adopt this policy. If someone is ill and shouldn't come to the meeting, then that person can Zoom into the meeting. If you adopt, again, all of this is if you adopt the policy. That also, what the lawyers have said falls under there as well, is if anyone has a doctor's note that says they should not go to a meeting because of risk of whatever, then they can use Zoom. If someone is not physically going to be able to get here, as in they are down east on a fishing trip, but they have plenty of Wi-Fi, then they could use Zoom to come. The caveat with all of this is if any member of the board uses Zoom to attend the meeting, all of the public has to have the ability to do that as well. So that's something just to keep in mind. It's something that the select board has adopted, the planning board has adopted. It does give you a bit more flexibility. All this could change again if the governor has another executive decree and decides that we can all go back to Zoom. But this at least gives you the flexibility of saying, if we have an emergency, if someone is sick, we can still maintain a quorum by using Zoom. So I would highly recommend that you do adopt this, and I'm more than happy to entertain any questions.
First one that comes to mind for me is, like, is there any time frame in which, like, how soon can we say I gotta be available by Zoom? Let's just say this morning I woke up sick.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to come here and give it to anybody, but I still wanted to attend the meeting. I let somebody know. I mean, less
At
than
that
24
point,
hours notice, can that be done?
Yes, it can be, because we can put it on our website, add it to the meeting, we would post it on the sign out here as well, that no longer is it just at the broadcast studio, it's broadcast studio and Zoom. And that gives the public the ability of zooming in. And then out back, the broadcast folks or the videographers are already well versed in doing kind of bifurcated meetings, if you will.
Okay.
So I'm just making sure I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
If one of us Zooms, then people can Zoom,
Yes.
but okaying the policy or adopting the policy doesn't give it a blanket, anybody can Zoom.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's only if someone on your board fits these categories. So, for instance, on the planning board, there's one member who has a doctor's note to say that they should not be at the meeting. So they will always have Zoom as a component. If you do Zoom in, your head will be up here on the wall. If you're the only one, it's sizable.
So if I'm traveling out of state, I'm gonna be gone for weeks or whatever,
Yeah.
I just would let David know, and I would zoom in from where.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm assuming, let's just say we had an applicant. An applicant doesn't have this to go on, right? They can't say, I feel sick today, I would still like to be able to move forward with my application. Can I call in? You know, if I'm the applicant.
That would be a bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's too much of a stretch necessarily.
Okay.
If that were to come up and we had the time, we would probably confer with the lawyers just to be positive.
Okay.
But that's this at least gives you that sort of flexibility. If you don't adopt the policy, you can't do that. You have to meet in person.
Okay.
And if you can't meet in person, then, and two of you are sick tonight, you wouldn't have a quorum.
Right.
So just to clarify,
Yes.
the policy, what are the conditions? It's medically, some sort of medical conflict, travel, and is that it?
That's really about
Okay,
it.
so it's a couple different medical statements. and
Or
then
an emergency.
An emergency.
You suddenly need to meet.
Okay.
And the selectmen have
Oh,
already
I
run
see.
into this once,
Okay.
where they needed to have a meeting to meet a statutory deadline. And there's no way they could physically all get together in the middle of the day to get that done.
I see.
So they had a Zoom meeting, and all of the members were in Zoom.
Well, I can't really see any
Seems like,
negatives.
yeah.
Right?
I haven't found a downside to it.
Yeah.
No, I see a lot of positives because I already know I can't make next meeting because I'm in Virginia, so we wouldn't have a quorum.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this a written policy that each of us has to sign?
Yes.
I take it.
Okay.
So are we looking for a motion to approve it? Is that,
Yes, you would need to vote on it.
okay.
It'd need to be a motion.
Well, I'd like to move that we adopt the new meeting policy.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I happen to have said policy with me.
With our names on it, probably.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was in that, but I can't.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, that works out good.
And then it needs to come to me.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
Appreciate
Good
it.
evening.
So, you might as well stay in our new business zone here. We have an acknowledgement of minutes. March 25th, 2019, May 20th, 2019, July 29th, 2019, August 26th, 2019, September 9, 2020.
It should be 29, September 29.
Thank you very much. September 29, 2020.
That's okay.
No, this is I have the old agenda. January 26, 2021, February 23rd, 2021, and March 31st, 2021. Before I take a motion, can I just ask Sandy why we're extending so far back into 2019 with this?
They were waiting for me when I got the job.
That's a good answer.
I have a second question.
So I got you all
So,
caught up.
so,
I know.
so what happened between August of 2019 and September of 2020?
Some of those had been approved. They were just like random, ones that weren't, ones that were done.
Mary was,
So-
excuse me, Mary was overwhelmed, and that's the minutes had,
Yeah, it's like
Falling
some
behind.
of them she got to and others
Yeah.
were still left back, and so I went through and I found you all the missing ones.
Okay.
Did them all.
Out of curiosity, any legal ramifications to simply doing it an acknowledgement versus
No,
an
you talk to the attorney, and that's the only way you can because of the changeover in the board. We don't have enough people that were on the board at those dates that can approve.
Okay.
So this way they're acknowledged, they still get put on the website with the rest of the minutes, and
Okay.
we call it good.
Right, so this is just not the same thing as an approval. This is just acknowledging that these are the minutes
Correct.
as stated, and we
Correct.
acknowledge that somebody stated that these are the minutes. Okay.
Correct.
I'm
The
assuming-
video is still the official record.
Okay.
Right.
I'm assuming the acknowledgements do not require any signatures. Okay. Anybody?
I make a motion that we acknowledge the minutes of the dates that you had just listed and approve the minutes for the May 25, 2021 and June 29, 2021.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next on the agenda, interview of Dan Treziak for a position on the board.
And after you went through and said all that, we withdrew the application.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So, do we have anyone in the pipeline, as they say?
Not that I'm aware of yet.
Okay.
We're trying.
And I should have, as an extension of the new remote meeting laws, Sandy and I had touched on this by email. Both the select board and the planning board had discussed in relationship to the new remote meeting law, since we are meeting now in public and within a building, if we as our own board wanted to come up with any sort of mask policy. Policy would be specific to this board in our meetings. It's not something we have to do, but it's something that we thought we could discuss and make a decision on. So,
Discuss the wearing of masks?
well, we have a choice as a board, since we are meeting in a public space and public
Okay.
comes, and we're here as well. We have a choice if we want to establish a mask policy.
Oh, okay.
It's my understanding the select board chose not to.
Mhm.
Planning board chose to institute a mandate for the mask.
Correct.
So, but we're our own board, so we get our own decision with regards.
And this would
Yeah.
include members, public, anybody in the.
Yeah, anybody
okay,
that came
yeah,
in would have to
yeah.
be wearing a mask. if
In
that's what
doing
you
so, we
choose
would have to
do.
wear them as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I mean,
And is it contingent on changing of CDC guidelines, or just
my understanding.
blanket yes or no? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
You-
But and we could change it at any time, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
you could
okay,
always
so-
bring it up again and readdress it,
So,
yes.
okay. So we could revisit
Could revisit.
if
Yes.
needed.
I mean,
Is there a way to change it outside of like another meeting? Like, is there like if let's just say things changed and guidance was to wear a mask from like the CDC or something
Like prior to a meeting.
prior to a meeting, like would we then have to come in the room, invite the public, discuss this policy, and then vote on wearing a mask, and then ask people to put on masks, or like how would? It's a little bit of a.
It sounds like about the way you would have to do it, but
There's no.
the
yeah.
smart way would be if the CDC changes it and it gets to where they say to wear them, that we all come in with them, and then we'll just, try to get the public to until you vote to change the policy.
And then people would have to leave, I guess.
If they won't
theoretically,
wear a
if
mask,
won't
they
wear a
have to
mask.
leave because we actually supply them here.
Okay.
I mean, I would be of the opinion that we have been through COVID now for a year and a half, and we've had sufficient time to learn about masks and social distancing and all that, and I would think that at this point, people would be able to make that decision on their own with regards to that, as opposed to us having to establish anything. So I lean more towards just not having any sort of policy in regards to a mask. But that's just where I'm coming from.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my perspective is we just defer to public health officials, which none of us are, as far as I know. So right now, I think the guidelines are not mandatory. If it changed, I'd hope we would revisit it. But
I agree.
Okay, so don't really need to do anything there.
No.
Okay.
So, agenda says old business of none. However, we did receive
Right, that was
something
afterwards.
from Charles Rogers. So, his application for a garage on his property was tabled at the last meeting. So in order to move forward, would anybody make a motion to get this off of the table so we could talk about it?
I'll move to untable the
I'll
matter.
second that. Any further discussion with regards to the untable? All in favor of taking it off the table? Okay. So Charles provided a letter dated August 24th, 2021. I'll go ahead and read that for the record. Setback reduction request for 49 Inlet Pond Road, Raymond, Maine. Dear Ms. Fredericks, I contacted several surveyors to do a survey for the proposed garage setback request. They are extremely busy and expensive. They would not be able to do a survey until next year or maybe later this year. I was also quoted an estimated cost of $3,000. Being retired and on a fixed income, I found this estimate more than I could pay. Therefore, I would like to request that the location of the garage be moved to a location where a survey is not needed. The attached diagram shows the proposed new location. If it would be 100 feet from the water, however, I would still need a 15-foot setback reduction from the road. Thank you, Charles Rogers. Also provided an attachment of looks to be tax maps and hand-drawn in where the proposed garage new location would be. So when we tabled this last time, you remember we had made a request for a survey to be done because there was some question about how close or how far the garage would be from the water. And so we made the request for the survey, hence Charles's response and choice to relocate the garage to an alternate spot. So the question comes up, what to properly do moving forward. And with that, I guess I would look to you, Alex, just to provide a little bit of feedback.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's one of those things. In order to apply for any type of variance or building permit, you need to give some type of, you know, setback information, spatial information showing where you're proposing to build the structure, right? So typically for our building permit, you can create your own scaled plot plan and submit that, and that becomes, you know, part of the application. You sign the application, you're swearing that all the information you're submitting is true and accurate. However, when you sign that, you are, you know, basing that on your own knowledge. So if you believe that's where the setback, you know, where your property line is, then, you know, you're saying that that's true. You know, the issue with the variances is those are, you know, you guys approve it. There's very strict requirements to where and how much. It gets recorded in the registry, and it's kind of like a legal document. If you guys approve a variance down to 15 feet and he builds this thing 15 feet from where he thinks the lot line is, and then he sells it and they do a mortgage loan inspection and find that he's actually 5 feet into the right-of-way, it creates some issues. So the way I usually handle these situations is if I have any structure that's non-conforming, because maybe it's a replacement of a legal non-conforming structure, which doesn't require a variance to be replaced, as long as you're not making it any more non-conforming. I require, as part of a condition of that approval, that they get as-built documentation from a surveyor confirming that they're no closer than that previous structure was. So if they're saying the previous structure was 8 feet, surveyor has to go out and say, yep, their new structure is 8 feet. If they were only 4 feet, and then the surveyor goes out and says you're only 4 feet, then they're going to have issues. So I always tell people, if you're replacing a non-conforming structure and, you know, we're going to require a surveyor to do an as-built, you should have them come out beforehand and confirm that that's really where the structure is. A lot of surveyors aren't going to go out and confirm a setback unless they've done a survey, because that takes research and time, and you know, it does cost money. So I think approving a variance for a setback reduction or a variance in general without any, you know, signed professional, licensed professional saying that this is how close the structure will be or is, I think it's a risk for you guys and for him. So I think that's definitely not something, I mean, it's definitely something you don't want to just take lightly, because it, based on what he provided last time, it's questionable where the lot lines really are, I think. And we don't know where they are. without a survey, so. I don't know if that helps, but.
It does, at least for me. Any discussion?
Well, I'm curious, is that a normal cost for a survey?
You know, I don't really
$3,000?
know, but I can say that does sound, for a full-blown boundary survey, for them to say it's gonna take a couple of months and it's gonna cost $3,000, I'd say that's probably pretty accurate.
Okay, so he is asking for the right thing, getting that number.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Okay.
You know, if you're gonna just ask for them to come out and mark a property line or find a corner pin, it might cost less, but if they're gonna put together a sketch and it's gonna include a structure, a proposed structure, setbacks, that's not unreasonable. And I mean, you gotta factor that into the cost of building a garage too. I mean, $3,000, if that's going over the budget, then, you know, maybe he needs to scale back the garage and factor that in. I mean, that's just, you know, part of the process. I think, you know, that's something that if they're going to be building a structure, we wanna make sure that it's in the right spot, and that's just the cost of doing it correctly, I think, unfortunately.
Okay.
So a quick question for Sandy. What did Mr. Rogers know that we might be speaking on this tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. I have concerns. Number one, we did ask for a survey to be done, which, you know, Mr. Rogers has indicated, you know, he's not ready to move forward with that. Then he did provide a sketch of where he's proposing his new location for the garage, which to me makes it seem even more necessary for a survey because it's so close to the road, and I don't know if there's road setbacks too. So I personally, I don't see that the new proposal changes the need for a survey. And also, I guess with this, we have to decide what are the next steps for Mr. Rogers. How do we properly convey to him what his next steps should be? Does he have to provide a new application, amended application? Does that require then new fees? Those are some things I guess we had to discuss. And I mean, I'm not one to make him have to pay more money than he has to, but there's also, given how this looks, I would almost think we'd have to have another site walk just to confirm where he's going to place this. And you know, there's things that go into it, such as obstructions and whether or not property owners, abutting property owners, maybe we're okay where it was before, but not okay now.
And that is a true statement, that the lady next door was concerned that the garage not be on her side of the property because of drainage issues or something, so.
Well, I believe once he understands that either way he has to get the survey, he might go with his original plan. So he has that opportunity, so he has two choices, you know. One, actually, he's got to get the survey to do it, period. So you can either go with your original application or do an amended application and incur more fees. So those are two choices that I see.
You know, we would all agree, right, that a survey, he has to get a survey done.
I mean, the tax map doesn't even show.
Is that what this is?
The side dimensions. It shows, you know, I'll say the road frontage side and the
Yes.
water side.
Yeah.
There's,
But as Alex indicated, any application would require that.
Yeah, I mean, this is dimensionless. It's hard to
Yeah.
even.
yeah, and the shoreline policy says it has to be a scalable, accurate sketch plan or something to those words, so.
Yeah, and we have, as a board, we have, it's our responsibility to ensure that it's the minimum possible setback that we can allow. And he's asking for the full 15 with no evidence that he needs the full 15, so.
Alex, have you gone out and looked at the new location?
I haven't looked at
And you
the
can-
new location.
okay.
I went down months ago and stopped down there just to take a look at the lay of the land, but I don't know exactly where that new location is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we really don't have anything to even base a decision off from at this point.
No,
Like
not
there's
really.
just no information.
Well, I would agree with what Patricia said, just let them know what, it's a minimum of survey is needed. And that you can either move forward where you originally had it at no cost, well, no additional fees, or if there's a change to this new location, then we're likely we kill off the original one. You say it's no longer valid, and then you move forward with a new application.
Yeah.
So is he a new application or an amended application? Because
I
I
would
mean, it's
just
a new
amend it.
location.
I would just have them amend his
Amend
existing
it?
application,
Okay.
yeah.
Does that
Otherwise-
include a site walk if it's amended to a new location? 'Cause-
It can.
Okay.
I think we'd have to renotice the butters and everything.
Which is where the fees come in.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's an escrow, right? It's set up as an application escrow for this? No?
No,
It's just a flat fee? Yeah,
but we know how much the notices would be, so
yeah.
he could do that. If he amends the application, we don't necessarily have to have him pay the whole publication fee again,
Okay.
because it's been tabled, even though it's going to be amended. But if we have him withdraw the other one and submit as a whole new application, then he gets hit with the publication fees as well.
Yeah.
The abutter notices are the least of his problem, and I don't believe there were that many on his.
So let's present to him the most cost-effective ways to move forward then.
Procedurally, what do we do to preserve his optionality? Is it, I mean,
Yeah,
do we
that's kind of the
table it
next question.
again?
What do we do
and-
next?
So that
I'm-
we
that's
don't
what I
make
would
the
do.
decision for him, like let him,
Yeah.
you know,
Correct.
have the
There's-
decision and, yeah.
Right, when you actually, get done spelling out that these are the options that we want to have sent to him in written form, then I'll write that letter tomorrow. I'll run it by you, David, before I send it, but I'm kind of used to doing those things. And then, if you would table it tonight, and then that gives him time.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we put a time limit with this for him?
Well, that was something you're gonna have to discuss, because if he's gonna have to get the survey, we know now that that's gonna be a couple of months.
Right.
So you can table it stating until such time as correct survey and documentation are received. And that way it just
Just-
sits on the table
Just
until we
remains
get something.
open-ended for him to pick and choose.
And is there a constructive end to the application if it just sits tabled? Is it
I
like
mean, you could probably put an end date to that too, until such time or, a certain date.
Yeah, no later than, if you wanna give them like till December or even
Yeah.
into next
6 months or
January,
something.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, I would be open to 6 months, since he said his surveyors are going out into next year.
Mhm.
So-
Right.
Yep.
Well, the scenario I was thinking of is, would we, if we table it and then there's no new business except for this again and no one shows up, are we meeting just to discuss untabling and tabling again? Or-
No.
So it would just be perpetually tabled?
It would
Yeah.
just stay
Okay.
on the table. If you guys don't remove it again,
I see.
it's gonna
I
stay
see.
on the table. If he doesn't get back to you in like 3 months, even though you're gonna give him 6, take it off the table, state that no new information has been received yet, retable it, that gives him another 3 months.
I see, okay.
And is it my understanding that you would help us with those timelines, Sandy, in case we're forgetting?
Of course.
Perfect. So at a minimum, I know we get a motion to table this again. Is there any other motions we gotta do? Like sending him an application or sending him a notice or anything like that? We're just gonna
Just
table
be
it.
the one, yep.
All right. So,
And just say why you were tabling.
Mhm.
so do I have a motion to table this in order to give Mr. Rogers some time to read our letter in regards to the request for a survey and the potential for an amended application?
I'll make a motion.
Seconded?
Any further discussion? All in favor of tabling? Okay. And moving on to code enforcement communications.
Awesome. I don't really have a whole lot. Things have been pretty busy since June 29th, I think it was. One of the big pieces, I think I may have mentioned a few different items of important things we had been working on in the office. You know, Sandy coming aboard and taking over the planning and zoning stuff was kind of a big step. And we had gone online with scheduling, permit applications. The online portal is up and running. It's been up since May now. Where we're still kind of getting used to how it works and adding functions to it, and we'll be expanding on it in the next year, continuing to kind of add stuff to it. It is probably not being used by a lot of people right now, but people are starting to find out, you know, it's there, it's available. You can actually go on right now and see every application that's submitted, what they're looking to do, where it is. There's a lot of information people can get out of this. So if your neighbor's got ribbons out and you're wondering if they're going to be building something, you can go on and search to see if they have an open permit or if they've submitted a permit application. And so it's just kind of our you know, our plan to you know, be more transparent with what's going on, and so that people can you know, find the information when they want it instantly, because that's the big thing in today's world. People want it now. They don't want to wait for a return phone call and stuff. So the big news story is since we met, we did post a full-time assistant code officer position, and we have hired someone, and he starts next Tuesday. So we'll have now 2 full-time code officers, and I expect that that's going to really improve the process and the customer experience with the department. We are fortunate enough to hire Chris Hansen back, who was Raymond's code officer for a number of years. I think he left about 5 years ago, and was the code enforcement department head in Wyndham. So he's left Wyndham and is coming back to Raymond. And it's going to be good. Chris is someone I've worked closely with over the years. He knows a lot of people in town, knows where a lot of the roads are already, because he's worked here for a number of years, knows the ordinances. So he will quite literally be up and running day one. He already has established relationships with all of the staff, or a lot of the staff. So we're excited. I think it's going to be huge for the town. Kind of all big, you know, it's been a big year of, this is the list of stuff I want to do to really, you know, correct some of the issues that have been taking place, and this was the last big one. So
Well, congratulations.
we'll see how the ship floats.
Did you say 2 full-time?
Yep.
Wow, okay.
Yep. So we're quite literally doubling code enforcement staff in a sense. I mean, it's going to be structured in a way that you know, I'll hopefully be in the office more. He'll be out in the field more doing inspections. So it's kind of like hiring an inspector position, but he's a full-fledged certified code officer, so he can do all of the stuff we would need, including violations and enforcement. We got a long list of violations, so it's going to be a busy couple of months. You guys might get busier too, because as we start to rattle off some notice of violations, those include the opportunity for an appeal. So there may be some NOVs we send out that get appealed to you guys, which could be December, January, probably before that starts, but it could happen.
So if there's twice the code enforcement now, does that mean twice additional work for Mary? Do you need a new Mary?
No, I think the way, a lot of the issues that we're running into now with Mary, you know, for a while it was phone calls and then it was permits. Right now, it's the backlog in permit applications. So a lot of Mary's phone calls that she gets on a day-to-day basis are people wondering where their permit is. You know, it's been 3 weeks, been 2 weeks, they want to know what the status is. So I think, you know, having 2 of us, we'll be able to get the, you know, that permit turnaround time down to definitely under 2 weeks, which is a significant, you know, improvement from where we are right now. So if she's getting less calls from people wondering where the permits are, I think that's going to cut down a lot of her work there. Plus, if I'm not out doing inspections all day, I'm there in the office to take walk-ins instantly, and that's less time that she has to set up an appointment with me and there were times this summer where I was scheduling a week out, which is just not okay if someone has, they're calling for an inspection 24 to 48 hours before, and we're a week out, then it does make things challenging. So it's going to, I think, resolve some of the issues, the log jam that Mary's dealing with.
Good.
And hopefully, improves, her experience too.
So we have a lot of growth going on.
Yeah, it's been busy, and we actually have two residential development projects going through the planning board process right now. One is a 26-unit apartment complex, and I think it's 26, and the other one is a 9-lot subdivision down near 302. So, and there's a couple more that may be coming in soon. Rolling Brook, that's now up and running. They've got another 15 or so lots left to sell, and then the subdivision on Valley Road. So there's a lot of residential projects that are kind of in their early stages.
These violations, is this like all of a sudden there's a bunch of them, or it's just?
No, it's normal stuff.
It is?
Yeah.
All right.
Just people who do stuff that either don't realize they need permits, or they need permits but they just don't want to get them. And 90% of the time they're willing to comply, and then 10% you've got some people who just won't, and those will be the ones that will probably come to you guys.
Okay.
Because
So it's after the fact.
Yep, it might be an after the fact, permit application, or, they just get the NOV and they want to appeal it, because a lot of times if you go to court, and you don't appeal, that kind of hurts your court case, because one of the things you need to do is explore all possible avenues before you go to court. And if someone has the right to appeal by saying, I feel like the code enforcement officer is incorrect in saying this is a violation, then they need to appeal. If they don't, then when we go to court, that's one of the things that we can say, well, they had the right to appeal and they didn't. So,
okay.
They had the option to say we were wrong and they didn't, and now we've gone to court. So, I mean, it could get, like I said, it could get busier as far as administrative appeals go.
Okay.
Because those are administrative. So those are, basically me versus them, and you guys have to decide.
Sounds
Those are fun.
interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, though.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just got any questions? Any more questions? Have one comment before we move on to adjournment, and actually more of a question for Sandy. Sandy and I had communicated about a month ago. There's so many new people on the board. Patricia, you're the long-termer for us. And so I had discussed with Sandy the potential for bringing in one of the town attorneys to discuss with us
Right.
how we should legally approach being on the zoning board of appeals. So we had discussed at the time that we would wait and see if we approve the new member for the board tonight, and then potentially looking at having that attorney be here
Right.
for a September timeframe. But
The flip side of that, David, is you guys may want to sign up for that MMA course first, that
Okay.
webinar next month,
yep,
and see if that answers enough of your questions. And if not, then we can see about getting the town attorney brought in.
yep, it's fine. So you guys, I know we had discussed briefly about how that would be helpful. So I mean, if anybody, I'm good with doing the MMA, but I don't know if there was some town-specific stuff that you would want to go over in terms of reviewing ordinances or things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, just for clarity, we discussed, there was a session, I don't know if it was like last August or it was
a couple of summers
it was a
ago.
couple of summers ago maybe, where the town attorney had come in and kind of outlined,
Right.
the right procedural, like don't look at Google, for instance. And it's hard, like there's a little bit of nuance there that it's hard
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine being efficient and like also abiding by what the legal requirements are. So David and I had discussed like how do we educate ourselves best. So if the webinar helps, that's great. But it sounds like there might be an additional,
Right, there might be some things that are more
Yep.
specific to the town that you want to know about. That's something we can probably check into right now.
Is the webinar, it allow any question and answer, or is it just broadcast? Kind of thing.
I'm not sure, because usually when it's an in-person one of those seminars, they do have a question
And
and
they
answer
canceled
at
the
the end.
September in-person one, right?
Right, so I'm not sure. I can see if I can
Okay.
check that.
I mean, if there's no period for questions, then we still probably need to talk to the legal beagle about, some of our particular questions.
What have you found most helpful, Patricia? Have these MMAs been helpful?
That was a very informative
Yeah.
course, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the first time or two,
Right,
it is
yeah.
informative, but after that, I mean,
It
how
was-
many I went
Yeah,
to
yeah.
because they wouldn't go alone.
And usually when things are specific, if we're addressing an issue and something comes up that we do need legal to, chime in on, or we're looking for guidance, that's usually when we call them.
Well, yeah, that's when it's for application
Right,
specific.
I know I've had them here before, so.
Okay. Well, good.
Great.
Everybody, anybody, final comments?
Just
Take a
don't
motion.
forget, I need you to sign the policy.
Yeah, plus I think we've got some.
Yeah,
other
and
things
some
to
of that
sign
other
as
stuff
well,
you still
so.
didn't get signed.
do we need, is this for
Yeah.
everybody to sign?
Oh,
Yeah, if, there's little tabs there,
Okay.
Greg, if your name's on the tab, you sign that
David?
set.
Well, I'm gonna do the most important thing of the evening and ask for a motion for
David.
adjournment.
I make a
Do I have one?
motion, we adjourn?
Seconded.
Seconds.
Second.
All in favor? We're out.
Okay.
Okay, adjourned.
Patricia and Tom.
Are we off camera? Yeah.
I think I signed